The sun hits like a hammer on steel. Heat turns the highway into liquid. My phone blinks a single bar, then flatlines. Please, just one bar. An engine roar I know better than my own name. My sister's face behind my windshield as my car knifes away. Throat like sandpaper. Every blister feels like a receipt I kept for years. 45 minutes ago we were singing with the AC on. Now I'm a headline waiting to happen. Not here. Not today. I press emergency again. The call drops. When did family become the desert? If you've ever felt dismissed, betrayed, or made to feel invisible, or maybe you've experienced the deepest loneliness, or that unbearable pain of losing those you love most, share it. Leave a comment, tell me where you're watching from. And don't forget to subscribe, because maybe the next story will remind you of your own strength. The sun hits like a hammer on steel. Heat turns the highway into liquid. My phone blinks a single stubborn bar, then flatlines. Please, just one bar. The word evaporates in my mouth before it reaches the air. An engine roar I know better than my own name. My sister's face behind my windshield as my car knifed away, dust stinging my eyes. The sound has a tail on it, like it's still happening, like if I turn fast enough I'll catch her looking back. I don't. The road is empty. The silence is loud. I taste metal and dust. My tongue is a dry sponge. Sweat stings old sunburn as it tracks down my spine. I force a breath, then another, matching it to my steps. 1, 2. 1, 2. The gravel chews the thin rubber of my soles and fine skin. A blister breaks. It feels like a receipt tearing off a roll. Emergency. I press and hold. The screen brightens, thinks about helping, then shrugs, call failed. A flicker of service returns just long enough to be cruel. Not here. Not today. I tell the road, or the sky, or the part of me that still answers when they call. 45 minutes ago, AC sputtered and Bella hummed off-key to a song I picked. Now the only music is the hiss of heat and the thud of my pulse in my ears. The highway wavers, a mirage pretending to be a river. I step into it anyway. The horizon refuses to move. I catalog small facts, the way a scared mind reaches for order. The shade of a saguaro is a lie. Ants are better at teamwork than my family. The little red battery icon looks like a wound. My wallet presses against my hip, heavy with registration papers that say the thing they won't, my name. My car. A vulture draws a lazy circle I pretend not to see. My foot catches a lip of asphalt, I go down hard. Palms scrape, copper floods my mouth. The road is rough, but honest. It doesn't ask me to apologize for standing up. I push up to my knees. Gravel prints my skin like a map. I make myself stand. I keep moving. And as my shadow crawls beside me in the heat, the tape in my head starts to rewind, to the last 45 minutes when everything still looked normal. 45 minutes earlier, the world still pretended to be kind. The AC rattled like an old tin fan, Bella hummed off-key, and I kept one hand on the wheel, the other cupped over a lukewarm iced coffee that tasted like melted resolve. But the rewind doesn't stop at the highway. It keeps peeling back to the kitchen last night, where my life was spread across wood grain under a cone of amber light. Pay stubs crosshatched by coffee rings. Bank statements highlighted like crime scenes. Tuition receipts with Bella's name in clean block letters and my own margin notes in cramped waitress handwriting. Rent due, tires, tips equals $42. A folder swollen with years. My fingers were ink-smudged the way a mechanic's are with grease. Different job, same proof. Mom leaned on the doorway like a portrait that could sigh. You've always been so independent, she said, making the word sound like a diagnosis. Dad didn't sit, he presided. That's the family car. I slid the registration across the table. It's in my name. He didn't look down. Not in this house. Bella floated in late, sunshine on her hair and no apology on her mouth. I just need it for a little while, she sang, like need was a hymn and I was the choir. The lamp buzzed. A fly worried itself against the window. The room smelled like dish soap and the lemon cleaner I'd used after dinner. Ordinary things filed the edges while the center kept shifting. Your sister's starting something important, Mom tried again, soft as bread. You can take the bus for now. I pictured the bus schedule taped to the diner's corkboard, all gaps and late nights, pictured Phoenix, the job offer like a door cracked open, light pooling at my feet. My throat tightened around the smallest word I know. No. It was a clean cut, no flourish, just steel. The sound it made in that room was enormous. Dad's jaw set. Mom's eyes shined. Bella's smile creased, then smoothed, practiced. Somewhere outside, a dog barked like punctuation. Family comes first, Dad said, that old sermon polished thin. I gathered my folder, the edges biting my palms. So does truth. They called my no betrayal. The table groaned under the weight of mashed potatoes and pot roast, but no one lifted a fork. The chandelier buzzed above us, too bright, bleaching faces pale. My hands lay flat on the linen, the folder of receipts hidden but burning in my lap. I'm selling the car, I said. My voice startled even me, too loud in the hush. The words dropped like silverware slipping from a hand. Bella blinked once, then smiled the kind of smile that always bought her extra time. Don't be dramatic, OD. You don't even like Phoenix. It's dusty and loud. I got a job offer, I said, steadier now. I start next month. The silence had a pulse. Dad's knife hovered above the roast, then clattered onto the plate. That's the family car. Not an argument, an edict. It's registered to me, I countered. I felt the papers against my thigh like armor. Mom's chair creaked as she leaned forward, eyes glassy with practiced sorrow. Your sister needs it more. You don't want to ruin her chances, do you? I remembered childhood summers, me sweating over chores while Bella was shipped to camp. I remembered birthdays where her gifts glittered while mine were practical. Every memory sat heavy in my chest like another stone on a scale that never tipped my way. I worked for that car, I said. Every shift. Every tip. Every Christmas Eve double while everyone else was home. It's mine. Dad's face darkened, the room thickening with his anger. Family comes first in this house, Odessa Lynn. You know that. The chandelier light fractured in my water glass, and for a moment, it looked like a prison bar cutting my reflection. I lifted my chin. Then maybe I don't belong in this house. Bella's fork clinked against her plate. You're really going to leave us? Over a car. Her tone was silk, but the edge was steel. I stood, palms flat against the table. The air tasted of gravy and iron. I'm leaving because I finally learned the cost of staying. The silence that followed was heavier than any slammed door. And the next morning, Bella asked to borrow the car, one last time. Morning light spilled through the kitchen blinds, striping the table where my untouched coffee had already gone cold. Bella leaned against the counter, scrolling her phone with a little smirk that made my stomach twitch. Just let me take it, OD, she said, casual as if last night's battlefield hadn't happened under the same roof. I'll be quick. You won't even notice it's gone. No, I kept my voice flat, the kind of flat that hides a quake. The answer's still no. Her eyes flickered, then smoothed back into charm. You're impossible. She slipped out the back door, the sound of her sandals clapping on the porch boards trailing after her. I didn't know then that her words were already blossoming in a private family group chat, one I'd never seen, one Mom would later add me to by mistake. Bella, she's being stubborn about the car. Dad, then she won't sell it. We can make sure of that. Mom, just teach her a lesson. Don't do anything drastic. Bella, relax. I'll handle it. Their words pulsed across the tiny screen, little black letters that carried a heat sharper than the desert sun. Premeditation typed out like a recipe: strand her, scare her, break her into bending again. By noon, Bella's smile was brighter, her tone sugar-coated. Can you check the tire? I thought I heard something. No edge. No anger. Just the soft brush of bait. Of course I pulled over. Of course I crouched beside the front wheel, gravel biting into my knees. The tire was fine, perfect, in fact. That's when the engine revved. Dust spat against my face, filling my mouth before the scream could escape. My own car roared past, Bella's silhouette framed in the driver's seat. My hand shot out, fingertips grazing hot air where the door handle should have been. I stumbled back onto the asphalt, stunned, the echo of tires still spinning in my ears. The desert stretched endless, brutal, honest. And I was standing in it alone, the gravel still biting my knees. And that's how I learned, betrayal doesn't always come with a fight. Sometimes it comes with a smile and a set of car keys. But I didn't know the worst part yet. The worst part was, they thought I wouldn't survive it. The desert is honest in a way my family never was. It doesn't pretend, doesn't promise. It just burns. I staggered forward, heat waves writhing like snakes across the asphalt. My phone clung to the edge of life, one bar, then nothing. The emergency call button mocked me, glowing like hope and failing like habit. Call failed. Again. Again. My throat rasped each syllable as if I were chewing glass. The sun blistered my skin, each step hammering a nail into my bones. My shoes were cheap diner sneakers, they weren't built for this. Pebbles burrowed into the rubber until I swore I could feel them carving through to flesh. My palms stung where I'd fallen earlier, grit ground into blood. Not here. Not today. The words became a rhythm, a chant. Each blister was a receipt. Each scar a ledger line. I had carried their weight for years, I could carry this desert for a few more miles. A shadow skimmed the ground. My stomach lurched until I looked up and realized it wasn't help, it was a vulture circling slow, patient as a debt collector. The horizon warped, promising a river that wasn't there, a tree that dissolved into air. Mirages, just prettier lies. I thought about all the times Bella had said, I just need it once more. How Mom called me selfish for keeping what I earned. How Dad's silence weighed more than his words. Their voices throbbed louder than the cicadas. My foot caught a chunk of broken asphalt. I went down hard, teeth cutting my lip. The taste of copper flooded my mouth. I pressed my palms into the road, rough enough to tear new skin, rough enough to remind me it was real. Unlike them. I pushed myself upright, legs trembling, lungs raw. Not today, I croaked, and staggered forward again. Minutes or hours, time melted with the horizon. My body was breaking, but something inside me sharpened. If they thought stranding me would bend me back into place, they didn't understand the truth, fire-hardened steel. And just as the edges of my vision began to blur, a distant rumble trembled through the ground, a sound that didn't belong to the desert. A truck. Or another mirage. I prayed this one was real. The sound grew from a tremor to a roar, not Bella's stolen engine this time but the deep growl of an 18-wheeler. I stumbled into the road, arms flailing like torn flags. The truck screeched, brakes howling, rubber burning against asphalt. A man in a ball cap leaned out, eyes wide. Jesus, lady, you trying to die out here? I couldn't form words, just a rasp, a hand pointing at my phone, at the horizon, at nothing. He helped me into the cab, the vinyl seat scorching but safer than gravel. He handed me a bottle of water, plastic cool against my blistered palm. I drank until my throat stopped feeling like sandpaper, until tears slipped down without permission. 45 minutes later, flashing lights split the desert glare. Red. Blue. Salvation. Officer Wilson's cruiser pulled alongside, door opening with a heavy thunk that sounded like authority. He guided me into the back seat, air conditioning wrapping around me like a mercy I didn't know how to receive. "Ma'am," he said, voice firm but not unkind, "abandoning someone in the desert is a serious offense." The words sliced clean through the haze. I blinked at him. "She just left me there." He studied me, then tapped the laptop mounted to his dash. "Your sister, Bella Matthews. She's got 3 prior citations for reckless driving. Paid in full. Each one marked PAD." He turned the screen so I could see. "Paid. By. Parents." My hand froze mid-sip, plastic crinkling. My head shook before I knew it was moving. What? How did I not know? Wilson's gaze stayed steady. "Family keeps secrets. Especially when money's involved." Something cracked inside, louder than any tire screech. Memories lined up, every shift I worked through holidays, every bill I scraped together. And all the while, they were covering her tracks, laundering her mistakes with the money they told me didn't exist. I pressed my hands to my face, the salt of sweat mixing with the sting of betrayal. The cruiser hummed forward, desert retreating in the rearview. Then my phone buzzed in the cup holder. Screen lighting up, battery clinging to life. A string of notifications poured in. 3 missed calls from Mom. 5 from Dad. 1 text from Bella. And then, suddenly, a group chat I had never seen before. The first message at the top froze me cold. "She's being stubborn about the car. We need to teach her a lesson." The words on that screen seared worse than the desert sun. Teach her a lesson. My own parents, typing strategy like generals in a war where I was the enemy. My fingers shook as I scrolled, each line tightening around my chest. "Dad, don't do anything drastic." "Mom, just make sure the car stays in the family." "Bella, I'll handle it." Handle it. She had handled it, all right, left me to cook alive in the desert. "Miss Matthews." Officer Wilson's voice pulled me back. He glanced at the screen, his jaw hardening. "This isn't just abandonment. This is conspiracy." The cruiser hummed through town, familiar landmarks sliding past like accusations. The grocery store where I cashed tips. The church where Mom wept on cue. The diner with windows that had reflected my tired face for 7 years. I clenched the folder in my lap, edges cutting crescent moons into my palms. "We'll need to recover your vehicle tonight," Wilson said. "It's in your name. That gives you every right." My stomach twisted, but my voice came steadier than I felt. "Then tonight." Jackie was waiting when we turned into my parents' driveway, her old Honda idling at the curb like a lifeline. My Chevy sat there too, dust clinging to its flanks, my freedom disguised as an ordinary car. Mom burst out the front door, mascara already streaking. "Odessa. Thank God you're safe, sweetheart. We've been so worried." Her hands reached, fluttering. I stepped back. Her fingers closed on air. Behind her, Dad stood stiff, arms crossed like a sentinel, his silence louder than any shout. Bella hovered in the hallway, her expression unreadable until Officer Wilson's voice cut the air. "Miss Isabella Matthews," he said evenly, "I need to speak with you about abandoning your sister in a life-threatening situation. It was just a misunderstanding." Mom's voice cracked like glass. Wilson didn't blink. "We have the messages." The color drained from her face. I walked past them, keys cool and solid in my hand. I'm taking my car. And my things. Dad's mouth opened, but Wilson's calm baritone overrode him. Actually, sir, she can. For the first time in my life, someone in authority stood between me and them. And as the engine turned under my touch, I knew, this time, I wasn't just driving away. I was leaving their gravity for good. But in a town like mine, silence is never private. By morning, everyone would know. And Bella would make sure of it. Morning at the diner was usually clatter and chatter, coffee mugs, plates of bacon, Mrs. Caldwell gossiping too loudly at table 8. But that day, silence followed me like a shadow. Forks hovered midair. Conversations trailed into whispers the second I passed. I set down the pot of coffee, knuckles white around the handle. Bella had beaten me here, not in person but in story. Her voice had already floated through town, dripping with practiced remorse. Poor Bella, so worried for her unstable sister. When the bell above the door jingled, every head turned. And there she was. Pale blue sundress, hair curled just so, eyes rimmed red like she'd wept all night. She could have auditioned for pity itself. Odessa, she whispered, just loud enough for the room to hear. Her voice cracked perfectly. I'm sorry. Please, please forgive me. Gasps spread like ripples. Mrs. Caldwell dabbed her eyes with a napkin. Mr. Henderson peered over his newspaper, hungry for spectacle. I felt the air squeeze my ribs. Every unspoken expectation pressed down, hug her, take her back, be the good sister again. The script had already been written, and I was supposed to act my part. Instead, I set the pot down with a deliberate click and pulled the folder from beneath the counter. 7 years of waitressing tips, payment stubs, registration slips, all filed, all dated. Proof heavier than any tear. I opened it in full view of the diner. Pages fanned out, ink shining under neon. Every shift, I said, my voice steady. Every receipt. Every mile I paid for. This car, this freedom, this life, it's mine. And I won't apologize for it. The diner stilled. Bella's tears faltered, mascara streak pausing mid-cheek. Murmurs shifted, tone turning. Someone coughed into their coffee. Jackie, at the register, crossed her arms and leaned back, eyes fixed on me. Behind her, Martha the owner gave the slightest nod. For once, I wasn't standing alone. Bella's lips parted, but no words came. The performance script had failed, the audience wasn't buying. And then, buzz. My phone in my apron pocket. A new message blinking across the screen. Mom, emergency room. Please call. It's serious. The room seemed to tilt. But I didn't move. Because for the first time, I could smell the lie before I even read it. The invitation came written in guilt, disguised as concern. Your father's heart condition has worsened. One last family dinner before you leave town. The words pressed heavy, but not heavy enough to stop me. I needed to see it through, to close the book myself. Thursday evening, I stood at the threshold of my childhood home. Jackie's car idled across the street, her silhouette watchful, keys ready in case I needed rescue. I stepped inside, and the performance began. The dining room table was dressed like a stage, fried chicken, mashed potatoes, green bean casserole, all my favorites arranged with surgical precision. A prescription bottle sat conveniently close to Dad's water glass, label turned outward. Beside him, Bella's eyes glistened as if she'd rehearsed the perfect apology. Sit down, Odessa, Dad said, gesturing to my old chair. His voice carried the authority of habit, not love. I stayed standing. How's your heart condition, Dad? His hand twitched toward his chest. Stress is the main factor, he said smoothly. Interesting, I replied, pulling the folder from my bag and setting it on the table with a thud. Because I called Dr. Winters 2 days ago. He hasn't seen you in 8 months. Your last checkup said you were perfectly fine. The silence cracked. Mom's fork slipped against porcelain. Bella's tears gathered but refused to fall. Blood is thicker than water, Dad started, the old proverb like a shield. I opened the folder, spreading documents across the table, calendars, bank statements, every time Bella's wants outweighed my needs. That's not even the right quote, I said, my voice steady. It's the blood of the covenant is thicker than the water of the womb. Chosen bonds are stronger than forced ones. Mom rose, hands fluttering. After all we've done for you. That's exactly the problem, I cut in. You've never seen what I've done for you. Every double shift. Every plan cancelled. Every dream deferred. I placed my house key on the table. The small brass symbol of belonging, now a declaration of release. I'm not here for forgiveness, I said. I'm here for closure. And as I turned toward the door, the house shrank behind me. Their anger, their tears, their performances, all powerless now. For the first time, the weight was gone. And in its place, lightness. Phoenix greeted me with light that didn't ask for anything. No strings, no sermons, just sun pouring through gauzy curtains, painting my apartment walls in gold. It was modest, 1 bedroom, creaky floorboards, second-hand furniture. But every square foot was mine. The silence was different here, peaceful, not punitive. On the corkboard above my desk, I pinned my first paycheck from the law office, still crisp in its envelope. Below it sat my paralegal textbooks, fluorescent highlighter slashes mapping a path forward. My old diner apron lay folded in the bottom drawer, no longer a shackle but a relic. The car sat in the parking lot outside, not the Chevy my family tried to claim but a reliable used Honda I chose myself. The key hung from a plain silver ring, no one else's fingerprints on it, no one else's permission needed. At night, I joined a support group Judge Martin had recommended. We called it Family Scapegoats Anonymous, the name half a joke, half a wound. We sat in a circle of metal chairs, paper cups of weak coffee in hand, and told stories that sounded too familiar. Each time someone's voice cracked, I nodded, because I understood. Each time I spoke, I felt the knot in my chest loosen, thread by thread. On weekends, Jackie dragged me onto dusty hiking trails outside the city. We climbed until Phoenix looked like a toy town below us, until the air smelled like cactus bloom and possibility. She laughed loud, easy, unashamed, the kind of laugh that doesn't leave bruises. One evening, after a long hike, I pulled over at mile marker 217, the exact place Bella had left me. The desert sprawled wide and endless, but this time I wasn't afraid. I stood beside my Honda, wind tangling my hair, and breathed deep. The heat that once blistered now warmed. The silence that once punished now soothed. I touched the hood of my car, grounding myself in its steady hum. This was mine. This choice. This life. And for the first time in years, the thought of tomorrow didn't make me ache. It made me hungry. Then my phone buzzed. Bella's name lit the screen. She wants a real conversation. The phone buzzed against the desk, Bella's name glowing like an old scar reopened. For a long moment, I just stared. My instinct was to hit decline, to let silence be the answer. But silence had once been their weapon, and I was done letting it define me. I slid my thumb across the screen. Hello. Her voice came fragile, the way she'd trained it to sound in every crisis. OD. I'm so sorry. I was jealous, I was stupid. I didn't think. I let her words run. Years ago, I would have filled the silence for her, cushioned her mistakes. Not anymore. I sat in the small Phoenix apartment, sunlight spilling across my textbooks, and listened. Just listened. she faltered when the silence didn't soften. I'm seeing someone now, a therapist. I'm trying to change. I need you to believe me. The old ache stirred in my chest, the part of me conditioned to rescue, to bend, to erase myself for peace. My fingers tightened around the phone, but my voice stayed calm, level. I hope the therapy helps you, Bella. Truly. I want healing for you. Her breath caught, like she thought forgiveness was next. But my boundaries stand, I finished. That hasn't changed. The pause on the other end was long, brittle. I could almost hear the gears grinding in her head, trying to rewrite the script, trying to tug me back into the old play. Finally, she whispered, "So, that's it." I looked out the window, at the desert horizon bleeding into twilight. My reflection stared back from the glass, and for once, she looked strong. "That's it," I said gently. "I'm rooting for your recovery. From here." Her exhale was sharp, hurt, maybe angry. But it wasn't mine to carry anymore. I ended the call, thumb steady. The phone sat silent in my palm, but I felt lighter, as if setting down a stone I'd carried so long I forgot it wasn't part of me. For the first time in years, compassion didn't mean surrender. It meant choice. And if I could tell the girl who stumbled through that desert one thing, it would be this: you don't have to break to prove you love them. The desert stretched wide before me again, but this time I stood at its edge by choice. Sunset spilled crimson and gold across the horizon, turning cacti into silhouettes, turning asphalt into fire. I parked my Honda at mile marker 217, the same place where Bella left me, and stepped out. The air was hot, but it didn't burn. It wrapped around me like proof I had survived. My boots crunched the gravel as I walked to the spot where I'd fallen that day, palms torn, throat raw, convinced I was nothing more than disposable. I closed my eyes and remembered the taste of dust, the echo of my sister's engine fading into silence. And then I opened them again. The silence was still here, but it was mine now. Not punishment, possession. I turned toward the camera, toward you, whoever you are, wherever you're listening. My voice steadier than it's ever been. They said family comes first. But what if family uses that to keep you small? What if they tell you your sacrifices are love, while they pocket your freedom? That isn't family, it's captivity dressed up as loyalty. I held the car key in my hand, turning it under the dying light. Boundaries aren't betrayals. They're proof you finally learned to love yourself. The day I walked out, I didn't stop being a daughter, or a sister. I stopped being their scapegoat. And that has made all the difference. Wind tugged at my hair, carrying the day's last heat. If you're trapped in the same story, hear me, you're not selfish for wanting peace. You're not cruel for saying no. You're not broken for refusing to be used. You are worth saving, especially by yourself. Behind me, the desert glowed like an open wound healed into a scar. I smiled, small, but real. So tell me, I asked softly, eyes fixed on the horizon and on you, if it were you in my place, would you press charges against your sister? Or is walking away enough? I slipped the key back into my pocket, climbed into my car, and drove toward the fading sun. Not running anymore. Not escaping. Just starting.